I want a divorce, Arthur, and you're not getting a single cent of this house. I've already filed the papers. My wife of 38 years, Helen, looked me dead in the eye. She didn't raise her voice. She simply reached down, slid her gold wedding ring off her finger, and dropped it. It landed with a soft, hollow splash inside my warm cup of morning coffee. I was 64. I sat frozen in my armchair, staring at the dark liquid swallowing the gold band. Before I could even process the words, my phone buzzed on the side table. It was a text message from an unknown number. "The paperwork is signed on my end, Helen. If he doesn't agree to sign over the deed by Friday, we proceed with the other plan." My heart hammered. Helen saw me look at the screen and quickly snatched my phone, shoving it into her pocket. "Who was that, Helen?" I managed to ask, my throat incredibly dry. "What plan?" "That's none of your business anymore," she said coldly, turning her back to me. "Our daughter Lily is 30 years old now. She doesn't need us to pretend we have a marriage. I want you out of this house by tonight." "Tonight?" I stood up, my old knees aching. "I'd built this house with my own hands. My business paid off the mortgage. You can't just throw me out." "Watch me," she whispered, her eyes filled with a strange, venomous confidence. "If you want to hear more raw, emotional life confessions from people who survived the deepest family betrayals, please take 5 seconds to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us share these untold stories." Just as Helen walked out of the kitchen, the front door flew open. Our daughter Lily rushed into the house, her face pale and tears streaming down her cheeks. She was holding a white medical envelope. "Dad, Mom," Lily sobbed, collapsing into my arms. "The hospital just called. My kidney function dropped again. They said if we don't find a donor match in the next 2 weeks, I'll have to go on permanent dialysis, or worse." I held my daughter tight, feeling her small shoulders shake against my chest. "It's going to be okay, Lily," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I'll get tested today. I'll give you your kidney. You know I'd do anything for you." Helen stood by the kitchen doorway, her face suddenly pale, her hands clenching the edge of her apron. "Arthur, no. You're 64. You have high blood pressure. You can't be a donor." "I don't care about my blood pressure, Helen," I snapped. "She is my daughter." Helen didn't look at me. She looked at Lily, a strange, calculating expression passing over her face. "The doctor said we need to explore all options. I'll get tested too, but Arthur, you shouldn't hold your breath." Why was she so desperate to keep me from being tested? The next morning, Lily and I sat in the sterile white room of the Mercy Transplant Center. The nurse drew several vials of blood from my arm, then from Lily's. Helen sat in the corner, staring at the floor, her leg bouncing nervously. "The compatibility and genetic marker results will take 48 hours, Mr. Vance," the nurse said, labeling the vials. "We'll check blood type compatibility first, followed by HLA tissue typing." As we walked out to the parking lot, Helen pulled me aside while Lily went to the restroom. "Arthur," Helen said, her voice tight, "if the test doesn't match, you need to sign the divorce papers. No fighting, no lawyers. Let's just end this quietly." "Why are you bringing up the divorce right now?" I demanded, utterly disgusted. "Our daughter is fighting for her life." "Because if you fight me in court, I will ruin you," she whispered, her eyes cold. "I know things about your business taxes from 10 years ago. I will go to the IRS." I stared at her, completely shocked. I had never cheated on my taxes. What was she talking about? Before I could answer, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was an email notification from my bank. I opened the app. Alert: business savings account balance, $250. Previous, $185,000. The money was gone. My hands began to shake. I looked up at Helen, who was already walking toward her car. "Helen!" I yelled, running after her. "Where is the business money? The $185,000 for our suppliers?"
She didn't stop. She opened her car door, looked back at me, and smiled, a terrible, victorious smile. "I told you, Arthur, I filed for divorce. As a joint account holder, I have the right to secure the marital assets. If you want any of it back, you'll sign the house deed to me on Friday." She drove away, leaving me standing in the dusty hospital parking lot. I took a taxi to my business office, a small construction logistics firm I had run for 30 years. When I walked in, my secretary of 20 years, Clara, looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Arthur," Clara whispered, pointing to my desk, "a man came in an hour ago. He had a power of attorney signed by Helen."
He seized all our physical ledgers and backup drives. "Who was he, Clara?" I asked, my chest feeling incredibly tight. "It was Charles Bennett," Clara said, handing me a business card left on the desk. "He said he's the new managing partner of Vance Logistics." Charles Bennett. He was my oldest friend, my best man at our wedding, and our family financial advisor. He was the man who had helped me set up the business accounts 30 years ago. I pulled out my phone and dialed Charles's number. It rang twice before he picked up. "Charles, what the hell is going on?" I roared. "Why did you take my files?" "Calm down, Arthur," Charles said smoothly. "Helen and I are just protecting our interests. You see, the business accounts were never fully in your name. When we set up the incorporation in 1992, you signed a clause giving your spouse 50% voting control. Helen has transferred her shares to me. I'm the majority owner now." "You betrayed me," I choked out, "after 30 years of friendship?" "Business is business, Arthur," Charles said, his voice entirely devoid of remorse. "And by the way, the hospital just uploaded the donor compatibility results to the online patient portal. You might want to log in. The truth is finally out." I hung up the phone, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened the hospital's medical portal on my computer. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I clicked on the PDF labeled Genetic Compatibility Report, Arthur Vance and Lily Vance. My eyes scanned past the medical jargon looking for the summary. At the bottom of the page, highlighted in a bold yellow box, were the words, "Locus match probability, 0.00%. Conclusion: the tested male, Arthur Vance, is excluded as the biological father of the patient, Lily Vance. There is no genetic relationship between the parties." The room went completely silent. The hum of the computer fan sounded like a roaring engine. I stared at the screen. 30 years. 30 years of late-night feedings, teaching her to ride a bike, crying at her high school graduation, and working 80-hour weeks to pay for her college. Lily wasn't my daughter. I grabbed my car keys, drove straight to our family home, and kicked the front door open. Helen was in the living room packing our family photo albums into cardboard boxes. "Who is her father, Helen?" I screamed, my voice cracking with pure agony. "Who is Lily's father?" She spun around. She didn't look guilty. She looked relieved. "Now you know," she said, crossing her arms. "It was Charles. It's always been Charles. We've been together before Lily was born." 38 years? I whispered, falling to my knees on the hardwood floor. Our entire marriage was a lie? "You were a good provider, Arthur," Helen said coldly, walking past me. "But Charles is the man I love. He's the one who is going to save Lily. He's already getting tested to see if his kidney matches hers. Since he's her real father, he'll be the perfect match. Now, sign the deed and get out of our lives." I lay on the guest room bed of a cheap motel that night, staring at the cracked ceiling. I felt completely hollow. My wife had cheated on me for decades, my best friend had stolen my business, and the daughter I loved more than life itself wasn't mine. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Lily. "Dad, the doctor told me the results. I don't understand. How are you not my father? Please tell me this is a mistake. I'm so scared." My heart broke. I looked at the text. I could hate Helen, and I could want to destroy Charles. But Lily was innocent. She was still the little girl who used to hold my hand when she was scared of the thunder. I picked up the phone and called her. "Dad," she sobbed into the receiver, "is it true?" "Lily, listen to me," I said, tears streaming down my face. "Biology means nothing. I raised you. I am your father, and I will always be your father. Do you hear me?" "I love you, Dad," she cried. "Mom told me Charles is my real father. She says he's going to donate his kidney to save me, but I don't even know him. I don't want his kidney." "If he's a match, Lily, you have to take it. Your survival is the only thing that matters." The next morning, I met with my estate lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Evelyn Croft. I laid out the bank statements, the business contracts, and the DNA test. Evelyn reviewed the documents, her brow furrowing. "Arthur, this is a highly coordinated asset strip. Helen and Charles have been planning this for years, but they made one massive mistake." "What mistake?" I asked, leaning forward. Evelyn pulled up Charles Bennett's financial advisory registration on her computer. "Look at the transactions from last month. He transferred $200,000 from the Vance Family Trust to an offshore account."
Offshore account in Belize. He didn't use Helen's signature for that. He forged your name. Forgery? I asked, a spark of hope finally igniting in my chest. "Yes," Evelyn said. "And because he used an interstate wire transfer to move the forged funds, it's a federal crime. If we report this to the FBI, Charles faces 20 years in prison. But Arthur, if we do that right now, his assets will be frozen and he won't be allowed to undergo the transplant surgery for Lily." I froze. The room felt incredibly cold. If I prosecuted Charles now, I would get my business back, get my money back, and ruin the man who destroyed my marriage. But my daughter would die waiting for another donor. "I wait," I said softly, the words tearing at my soul. "We let the transplant happen first. Arthur, if you wait until after the surgery, he might transfer the remaining funds out of the country and flee. You could lose everything permanently." "I don't care," I said. "Keep the evidence locked in your safe. We don't touch Charles until Lily is safe." 2 days later, the hospital called. Charles Bennett was a perfect HLA tissue match for Lily. The transplant surgery was scheduled for Friday morning. I went to the hospital on the morning of the surgery. I sat in the waiting room, completely ignored by Helen, who sat on the opposite side of the room holding Charles's hand. He was dressed in a hospital gown, looking smugly at me. "Thanks for stepping aside, Arthur," Charles whispered as the nurse wheeled him toward the operating room. "At least I can do what you never could, actually save our daughter." I didn't answer him. I just watched the double doors swing shut. The surgery took 6 hours. For 6 agonizing hours, I sat in that waiting room, praying for the safety of the girl who didn't share my blood. Finally, the surgeon walked out, smiling. "The transplant was a complete success. The kidney is functioning perfectly in the recipient, and Mr. Bennett is in stable recovery." I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 30 years. I stood up, walked to Lily's recovery room, and kissed her forehead while she slept peacefully. Then I walked down the hall to Charles's recovery room. Helen was standing by his bedside, pouring him a glass of water. When she saw me enter, her face hardened. "Get out, Arthur. Your daughter is safe now. We don't need you here." "She is my daughter, Helen," I said calmly, pulling a thick manila folder from my briefcase. "And you're right, she is safe now, which means I don't have to protect either of you anymore." I dropped the folder onto Charles's lap. Charles frowned, his pale face turning even whiter as he opened the folder. Inside were the certified wire transfer logs from the Belize bank.
the forensic handwriting analysis of my forged signature, and the formal FBI complaint draft. "What is this?" Helen gasped, snatching the papers from his hands. "That is 20 years in federal prison for your new husband, Helen," I said, my voice echoing in the quiet hospital room. "You thought you were so clever, stealing my business and my savings, but you forgot that Charles is a greedy man. He didn't just steal my money, he stole from the family trust, which is a federal offense." "Arthur, please," Charles stammered, his monitoring machine beginning to beep rapidly as his heart rate spiked. "I'll transfer the business back to you. I'll return the money." "You'll return every single cent, Charles," I said, leaning over his bed. "And you'll sign a full confession of the forgery. If you don't, my lawyer will submit this file to the federal prosecutor's office in exactly 10 minutes. "And what about the house?" Helen cried, tears of anger in her eyes. "The house is being sold," I said, looking at her with complete indifference. "You have 48 hours to pack your things. You can live in whatever cheap apartment Charles can afford after he pays back the trust." Charles signed the confession that afternoon, witnessed by the hospital notary and my attorney. By the end of the week, the $185,000 was returned to my business accounts, and my full ownership of Vance Logistics was legally restored. Helen and Charles moved into a cramped rented townhouse on the edge of town, their reputations completely ruined in our local community. I sold our family home and used the proceeds to buy a beautiful, quiet cabin by the lake. Yesterday, the bell at my cabin door rang. I opened it to find Lily standing on the porch, holding a small framed photograph of the two of us from her 7th birthday. She looked healthy, her cheeks full of color for the first time in years. "Can I come in, Dad?" she asked softly. "You never have to ask, sweetheart," I said, stepping aside. We sat by the fireplace, drinking coffee from matching mugs. She didn't talk about
Helen. And she didn't talk about Charles. She just held my hand. And for the first time in 64 years, I realized that some bonds are written in something far stronger than blood. I didn't get revenge. I didn't get my 38 years back. But as I looked at my daughter's smiling face, I realized I had found something much better. I had found my peace.